What is good, everybody? Welcome to the Gold Diggers podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. She's Michelle Magdziuk. It's Friday. Mimosa Michelle, happy Friday.
Happy Friday. I have a watermelon mimosa today. Getting crazy.
Whoa, look at you.
Getting crazy over here.
I love it. We've got a jam-packed show today. We're going to continue our draft preview with wide receivers that are going to be available for the 49ers after round one, which I'm very excited about. It's always fun to talk about the skill positions. We're going to get to that. I have a new draft crush, Michelle. It's not a wide receiver, but I have a draft crush. It's not logical. It's not anything, but I want to talk about it with you because I've been just watching this person's highlights over and over again in the morning. And now I'm like, I got my guy now. I got my one person I want the 49ers to draft. So we'll talk about that. The Niners have a new cornerback, which I think actually does have some draft ramifications that we can talk about as well. But first things first, Michelle, it's time for me to do it.
I was going to say, where is it?
It's time for me to pay off the bet. I have the Sam Darnold jersey in my hand. Let me take off the hoodie that I'm wearing, and I will put on the Sam Darnold jersey. For anyone that doesn't know.
You could have just been wearing it when you got on. You know, nobody needed to see you undress and then dress.
I wanted to see
This is not something anyone needed to see.
I'm not undressed. Okay, like I have a shirt on. It's not like I'm shirtless. I wanted to see your initial reaction because I could only find an extra large Sam Darnold jersey. As you can see, if anyone has ever watched any streaming movie, I am not an extra large person, okay? I'm an extra small person. And so this thing, I'm going to be like wearing a dress here on this thing. You won the bet. You made the predictions better than I did preseason for the 49ers. So you did not have to buy the Juwan Jennings jersey. I had to buy the Sam Darnold jersey. Hang on, let me take off the headphones.
Oh, my Lord. Yeah, I think it would have been way easier if he would have just had the jersey on.
Look at this thing. I can't even get it over. Oh, my God.
This is amazing podcasting.
Oh, I fumbled the headphones. It must be the Sam Darnold jersey. What a shot.
Good one. Good one.
All right.
It's a little large. You look like a child in it. It's fun.
A little large? It's huge. It's a dress.
You are struggling.
There we go. Look at this thing.
It looks great.
It looks great.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm about to turn over the podcast to somebody else. All right.
This is your shirt every Friday now.
I've got the Sam Darnold jersey. Look at the sleeves go like 3/4 of the way down my arms because it's so huge. But I am wearing it. Let it never be said that I welch on a bet. We made the bet. I have the jersey. Cost me $50. I don't know.
See, that's what I'm happier about, that you had to spend $50 on a Sam Darnold jersey. Like I care about that more than you actually having to wear it. It's just hilarious you had to put money down on Sam Darnold.
Yes, it is. Somewhere in the hallways or the annals of the internet, there's a record of me. Well, technically, it's my company. This is a business expense, but Gold Standard Productions has purchased the Sam Darnold jersey. All right. Diego, by the way, says Rob Darnold's biggest fan, Guerrera. That's just a damn lie, Diego. It's not even on the team anymore. Okay. Draft preview. We are less than 2 weeks away from the draft. Super excited about it. We've been doing positions. We did offensive line. We did cornerback. Did we do defensive line? No, not yet.
No. And I don't know if we'll do that. There's like 3 top tier guys. I don't know if any of them will be there for the 49ers first round pick. And then I don't know. I'm not skilled enough at that position to really dig in too deep there.
All right. Well, maybe we'll find another position to do before the draft, or maybe we'll do a mock. We'll figure it out. But today we are doing wide receivers. I do think the 49ers are going to draft a wide receiver. I expect them not round one, unless somehow somebody that they absolutely love falls to them. But that would just take a crazy scenario. But there will be guys available. It's a deep wide receiver draft. I feel like we say that every year. So, Michelle, who are some of your wide receivers that you think will be there for the Niners in round one?
Yeah, so round one,
Yeah,
so I was going to say, I don't think they'll take a wide receiver round one, and I don't think they should. Even let's say they go crazy and they trade away Brandon Ayuk, I still don't think they should take a wide receiver in round one. If anyone's had a chance yet to read The Beast, the Dan Brugler draft guide at The Athletic, he has 18 wide receivers projected to go in rounds 1 through 3, with most of them being second and third round guys. Like, this class is so stacked, but I'm starting to believe like those top 3 wide receivers are going to go. And I don't know if we're going to see another wide receiver drafted in the first round. Maybe someone's going to have a guy they feel super strong about, but we might see these guys all fall to day 2 because they're so similar in like their talent range. So I think we're round 2 or round 3 is really the great part here where the 49ers should be focusing on taking a wide receiver. Now, there's also a second part of this. The 49ers are so interesting because they could go multiple ways. Do they want to extend Ayuk and move on from Debo after 2024? Do they want to move on from Ayuk and just keep Debo, right? And focus in on him and take a different wide receiver? Or do they want to keep both of them? Like, we don't really know what way they want to go. So I'm going to kind of break this up into different segments here. So let's first start with a guy that I think would be perfect for them if they want to extend Brandon Ayuk and move on from Debo Samuel after the season. And his name is Malachi Corley from Western Kentucky. He is, I mean, it's so easy to compare him to Debo, right? He looks like Debo. He plays like Debo. He just turned 22 years old. He's 5'11", 207 pounds, thick boy, very tough, lower body strength. He led the FBS in yards after the catch last year. He's great after contact. He can drag defenders, good contact balance. Like, when you're watching him, he looks like Debo Samuel. So, and he has the skill set as he does as well. Now, he played at Western Kentucky, so it wasn't like some huge program where he was taking on these great defenders, but still, he looks super talented. Even Dan Brugler from the Athletic, he compared him to Debo as well. That's like the comparison that's everyone's going with. He's a late second round, third round type guy. And if that's the route they want to go, it just seems so easy to bring him in, let him learn from Debo for a year, have him play his time, limited role probably, but like as a third wide receiver. And then they could move on from Debo. And then you can extend Ayuk and have pretty much the same guys right there. I'm not saying Corley can easily do what Debo does, but it does seem like his little clone coming into the NFL.
So you are not the first person to say that. A lot of people have made the comparisons, Malachi Corley and Debo Samuel. I did an interview with Thor Nystrom of Fantasy Pros, and I asked him about that. And he went on a 5-minute, just absolute diatribe about how Malachi Corley is not Debo Samuel. I actually have a portion of it here. Let's see if I can actually cue this up and play it.
Wow, you had that ready to go.
Hold water with you.
I'm so happy you asked me about Malachi Corley because I just did that 5-minute love letter. So now I can go the opposite way and throw cold water on a guy. No, that is not a valid comparison. Malachi Corley is a running back playing wide receiver, and the Debo Samuel comparisons to him are entirely apocryphal.
So that was obviously a small clip of it, but he went on to say that he doesn't think he's as good as Debo as a wide receiver. He thinks that basically he couldn't get any separation at all, and the level of competition that he was playing at was nowhere near where Debo was playing at. So I think Thor's point was, if you can get him like round 5, round 6, round 7, great. But if you're talking about like second round, no. And I'm not saying you're wrong and he's right. I'm just saying I've heard both sides.
Yeah, I really liked him. I liked what I saw from him on the tape. I like what I see from him from the advanced stats. It's hard to be the next Debo, right? But isn't Debo saying he struggles with separation, right? So it kind of goes, and now we're saying Debo struggles with separation at the NFL level. Maybe he's saying he struggles with it at Western Kentucky. Yeah, that might be different issues. But also it could just be the system that he's in. It could be the quarterback not hitting him in time when he sees him. Like, there's so many different things that it could be. But I really like Malachi Corley. I think I would prefer him in the third round, but I don't think late second round is too crazy of a price tag for him. But that was my choice if they want to extend Ayuk and move on from Debo. Now,
well, hang on before you move on. Should the 49ers want another guy that's like Debo Samuel? Like, a guy that can't separate versus man covered? Like, why do we want another one of those guys?
I think it worked. I mean, I think that's what Kyle Shanahan wants. It works in a system. I personally think they should keep Debo, but for whatever reason, fans love to hate on him and don't give him the respect he deserves.
For whatever reason? I mean, are you really unclear of the reason at this point? The guy can't get open against man coverage. The guy needs to be spoon-fed the ball in order to do something. He's like half a wide receiver.
Oh my Lord, he's fantastic. For what he does, he's fantastic. But if you're saying, you're not happy with what Debo does, you can get a much cheaper option in Malachi Corley. So that was just one of my options. Now, the other way, if they want to move on from Ayuk and not extend him, then they're going to need a guy that's, better separator, can have more targets, can be that wide receiver one type. Now, this is Roman Wilson out of Michigan. I think he'd be a really nice option for them in the late second round. 22 years old. He does turn 23 after the draft, but that's a fine age. 5'11", 185 pounds. So not a huge dude, but that's a fine body type for a wide receiver. Ran a 4.39 at the combine, so very fast. Smooth route runner, super reliable hands. He only had 5 drops over the last 3 seasons in college football. So great athlete, explosive player. Not super flashy, but he just does everything very consistently, very competitive, and he played in that Michigan pro style type of offense. So I think he's going to be ready to go right away. He caught 12 of JJ McCarthy's 22 passing touchdowns last year. So if you just look at his stats, it doesn't look like anything insane, but you have to realize Michigan just did not throw the ball that much.
Yeah.
JJ McCarthy had 332 pass attempts last year. That's it. 22 passing touchdowns, under 3,000 passing yards. So when you see his 789 receiving yards and 12 touchdowns, I mean, the 12 touchdowns are great. But you think, okay, that's nothing too crazy, but that's just the offense he was in. And having 12 of the 22 passing touchdowns last year is huge. And I think he could be a really, really consistent, stable, good player right off the bat. Will he be as good as Ayuk right away? No, but we didn't think Brandon Ayuk was going to be Brandon Ayuk right away, right? So I do think Roman Wilson has a high floor and a high enough ceiling where it's not like he can't be a really good wide receiver in the NFL either.
He had as many receiving touchdowns in 2023 as the rest of the Michigan team combined. That tells you he was a preferred target for sure. I love the speed. Kyle's been looking for a speed guy. They took Danny Gray. They wanted that speed from Danny Gray. Danny Gray ain't it. So I like that aspect to it because, frankly, I think that's one thing that's kind of missing from the 49ers offense. I don't know. Obviously I can't claim I've watched a bunch of Roman Wilson, but is this somebody that we're going to have to take in round 2? Can we get him later than that?
Probably round 2. I don't think he'll be sitting there by the end of round 3. End of round 2 would be a really nice spot for him. He might be taken before that because I think all these guys that I'm going to be talking about, I feel like every team probably has them ranked in different orders. So It just comes down to what a team prefers, what they're looking for, the type of wide receiver they're looking for. I feel like in today's NFL, there's so many different types of wide receivers. It's what is your team looking for? And even just the 49ers here going down it, it all depends on what they need, what they're trying to replace, or what they're trying to find for their offense. That so many different guys in this draft. This is going to be a fun draft for wide receivers, that's for sure.
If the 49ers take Malachi Corley, that is a huge blinking light to the roster and the rest of the league that Deebo Samuel is not going to be on the team after 2024. Whereas I feel like if they take someone like Wilson, like you're talking about, then, is it a sign that things with Brandon Ayuk aren't going well, or they're bracing for that possibility? It's going to be interesting to see who they actually select. Boatswain Boogie 03 watching on YouTube says Roman is a red zone threat, something we definitely need. Can't have enough red zone threats, frankly. And to be honest, Deebo ain't getting open in the red zone. He's not. Deebo scores all his touchdowns from far away because he's a great catch and run guy. So I wouldn't mind a red zone target. I wish he was a little taller for that, for help with that, but you can't have it all.
5'11" is not short. It's fine.
Yeah, and 4.39 is. I'll take 4.39. Yes, please.
It's the thing. The 5'11", 185 body type is Antonio Brown. That's Antonio Brown. That's a fine body type, right?
Yeah, I'm not complaining.
Yeah. All right, and then this one I had trouble putting into what category. I was thinking it's a category if they wanted to keep both Ayuk and Deebo, but I also think it's an option if they wanted to move on from Ayuk. It's Lad McConkey from Georgia. Now, so everyone loves him, right? So PFF has him as their wide receiver 5. Dan Brugler from The Athletic has him as wide receiver 5.
Dane Brugler.
Oh, thanks. Have I been saying Dave? Why have you not been correcting me?
You called him Dane at first, and then you've been calling him Dan.
I knew it was Dane. I don't know. I knew it was Dane.
I know.
Did I call him Dave or Dan?
Dan.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes more sense. Anyways, he loves him. Kate, my wife, absolutely loves him. She's like smitten over him, loves him. She
Uh-huh.
wants the Steelers to get him so much. Now, this is his thing. According to her and according to many people, and I was watching him as well, and he does look like an elite route runner. But according to Kate, my wife, he's the best route runner in this class. He's elite separator, great speed, and he's good after the catch. This is his issue. He's smaller, 5'11 and a half, so not short, but 186 pounds. And he looks skinny. That's the thing. When you're watching him, he looks so skinny. He's so tiny. His arms are smaller than my arms. They're so skinny. He like it's hard again. So he's a white boy, and I know he's gonna get compared to like the Cooper Cup, but he does look like Cooper Cup out there, but much skinnier. He looks like a skinny Cooper Cup, and he also has very tiny hands, 8 and 5/8 inches. So again, this is like Kenny Pickett hands we're talking here. And it shows up in his contested catches. He has like no contested catches throughout his college career. He's not going to be that guy. So that's why I had trouble putting him in. Like, I don't know if he can be a wide receiver 1, which they would need if they moved on from Ayuk. But I do think they could utilize him in the slot and his separation ability with Ayuk and Debo there. If he's the third guy and you don't need him to make contested catches, like just separate, get open in the slot. And he's also like, he's known to be a solid blocker. He's an effort type of guy. Like, I do think he'd be a really, really solid slot guy. But he's being mocked like end of the first round, early second round. I don't see that at all. I just don't see that. I think I don't get that at all. I don't think he's worth that pick. If he falls to the end of the second, then sure. I'm not in love with him like other people are, but I get it. He looks fun. He's just so skinny. That's scary.
So Nick
I
Eller,
can't even believe he's 186 pounds. Like if you look at him, he doesn't look 186 at all. I'm wondering if he just put on some weight for the combine, and that's not really what he plays at.
Some guys hold it differently. Nick Eller, YouTube channel member, says, what's his size compared to Puka Nacua? So Lad McConkey's 5'11", 186. Puka Nacua is listed at 6'2", 205. So
Puka Nacua is a big boy.
Yeah, he's not quite that big. I mean, weight, I feel like that's the easiest fix, right? Throw down some freaking candy bars, hit the gym.
But apparently it's not. I mean, look at Devonta Smith. He hasn't put on anything. But
he's been good.
He's skinny. Yeah, I'm not saying skinny can't help. So Devonta Smith, I loved him coming out of school. I wasn't worried about his weight at all. Like you have to go look at Lad McConkey. His everything about him is so tiny. He's so tiny.
I have seen him mocked pretty high. The other thing I'm seeing, and by the way, I love the Beast, the draft guide from Dane Brugler. It is awesome. There are so many, it is so in depth on so many people. Yeah. It's crazy. The one thing I'm seeing about McConkey is injury issues. Turf toe, which is very scary to me because that doesn't go that can crop up at any time. That could be a chronic thing. He had a back injury. He had knee injuries. Ankle. Now, he didn't miss games, but that does scare me a little.
Yeah, and I do think he missed a little bit of time. Was it last year? No, he actually didn't.
Yeah, he didn't miss any. He missed the first 4 games of his redshirt
oh, no, he missed.
No,
sorry, he did. He missed 5 games last year. I thought so. He missed 5 games last year with back and ankle injuries.
He played through the turf toe and the knee injuries during 2022. Yeah. That's what it was. So, a little banged up. Don't love it. I mean, it is football. All these guys get hurt, but different injuries are different to me. Like Javon Kinlaw had a chronic knee injury in college, and then he got to the NFL, and what happened? His knee flared up. Sometimes you can see these things coming, and that scares me a little bit. There's a lot of other guys you can pick from. You don't have to have this guy. Maybe take someone that doesn't quite have the injury history, but that's just me. Okay, so we've got Malachi Corley, we've got Roman Wilson, and we have Lad McConkey.
Now, these next guys are definitely the guys that would be great if they're sticking with Ayuk and Debo and they need that third guy, add some speed, right? Add a speed guy in there. I brought up Troy Franklin about a month ago when we talked about some wide receivers. He's actually fallen in mock. So I do think end of second round is a very strong possibility for Troy Franklin to be there out of Oregon. 6'3", lanky. He is lanky. He's a skinnier 6'3" guy, super fast. But he's super young, just turned 21 years old, put up massive production last year with Oregon, over 1,300 yards, 14 touchdowns, averaged 17.1 yards per reception. I did say on that last pod a month ago, but I'll repeat the stat. Franklin and Malik Neighbors, who's going to be a top 5 pick probably in this draft, are the only players in the FBS that had 1,300 plus receiving yards and 14 plus touchdowns last year. So like his production was up there. And again, he averaged over 17 yards per reception. His biggest weakness is that we haven't really got to see him run many routes. Like Oregon asked him to run deep over and over and over again, right? It was just like go route, go route, go route, go route. It doesn't mean he can't run other routes, but he had very basic route tree at Oregon. Now, the thing about him though is he actually is a good catcher. So he reminds people, like when you watch him play, like a Christian Watson or an MVS, but he doesn't have the drop issues that those two guys had coming out of school. He's actually a really, really good catcher. He uses his hands. He uses his whole length and catches the ball with his like arms extended. He's not a body catcher. So that's like the biggest issue with MVS and Christian Watson. Like, yeah, you can get open all day, every day, but then you can't catch the ball when it gets to you. Troy Franklin does not have that issue. Now, if you can have one of those guys in your offense that can get open like that and create the separation and help out the offense, huge, but you need him to catch the ball. And I think Troy Franklin would and can. So I really would like him as a 49er in the second round, though, not the first round.
And unlike Christian Watson, Franklin has the production in college that you wanted to see for someone that has incredible physical skills.
And in FBS and not the fake football league.
1,300 yards, 14 touchdown average, 17 yards per catch. That's Brandon Ayuk territory, except of course Ayuk did it in the NFL last year, which is absolutely ridiculous. I remember Franklin from when you talked about him last month. I have so like you plant these seeds in my brain, and then I'm just kind of like, all right, let me see what other people are saying about this person. Let me keep an eye on where they're going in mocks. So then like come draft day, I'm going to be sitting there like, please take the guy Michelle said. It's all your fault.
Like Troy Franklin. I
don't know if these guys are good, but you put them in my head, and then all of a sudden I start to want them.
Well, that's good. That makes the draft more exciting, right? To have guys you're rooting for that you want on your team.
John Shoop says, only draft speed guys if they can do more than run fast, i.e. great route runner, kick returner, contested catch guy, etc. I agree. If speed is your only thing, I don't want you, because you need more than that in the NFL.
Yes. And I'm going to talk about two guys here that there's some worries with them, but they're third round guys. So not someone you had to take in the first or second, third, maybe even fourth, right? Third, I think for Xavier Legette. That let's talk about him first. He's the bigger name. Xavier Legette out of South Carolina, 23 years old, fifth year senior. So played for a long time. He's a big boy, 6'1", 221 pounds.
Wow.
But also, he ran a 4.39 at 221 pounds.
Whoa.
4.39. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, he did absolutely nothing his first 4 years in college. It was a little worrisome. Then broke out in finally his fifth year with 1,255 yards, 7 touchdowns, 17.7 yards per reception. Great deep receiver last year. He had 5 receptions of 50+ yards last season. And he just has that huge catch radius because he's a big, tall guy, long arms, dominates in contested catches. My biggest worry, though, it's 1 year production, and he didn't do anything for 4 seasons. So was he just really good last year because he's older, stronger, faster than the other young kids he's playing against 18 years old? Like, why did it take him so long to break out? That's my biggest worry with him. But he is a big dude who can run fast. But I'll name a different guy that I think could maybe even possibly be there in the 4th round, and I kind of like him better. But
okay,
thoughts
yeah,
on
hang on.
Yeah.
So when you say he did nothing, he did nothing. Here are his reception totals for his first 4 years in college: 9, 7, 8, and 18. Like nothing. So yes, that is definitely scary. He had a 1.78 second flying 20 at the combine, which is tied for Brian Thomas Jr. with the fastest. So the dude can move. And like you said, he ain't small. 221. That is big. That is thick. I kind of like that. Like fast and big is a hell of a combination.
Yeah, you can work with that. You really can. Like, I know everyone's like so pumped about the guys that run in the 4.2s or low 4.3s, but normally those are like 170-pound dudes, right? This is 221 pounds running in the 4.3s. That is craziness.
That reminds me of like Vernon Davis, like huge guy that actually is also super, super fast. Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
All right, so this guy, he's the opposite, I guess, of Xavier of Xavier Legette in terms of his body. So Malachi Washington. I just sound silly talking about this now, but for some reason I like him. All right, Malachi Washington out of Virginia. He's 23 years old, and he will be 24 by the start of the season. He is small, 5'8", 191 pounds
Whoa.
though. But 191 pounds. He's not skinny, but he is short. But plays much bigger than he is. Plays much taller than he is. Also, he had a 42.5-inch vertical jump, a 10.6 broad jump, ran a 4.47 40. That's plenty fast enough. But the 42.5 vertical jump is just craziness. He led the FBS last year in receptions with 110. He was second in receiving yards per game, 118.8, behind only Malik Neighbors, again, who's going to be a top 5 pick. Great athlete with super quickness and acceleration, great body control, ranked first among all FBS wide receivers in forced missed tackles. Again, at 5'8", 191 pounds, it's pretty impressive. He also was a pretty good kick returner for Virginia as well. This is my thing. So he also didn't do anything until last year. He was a 5th-year breakout. But I am willing to understand why for this one. So with Xavier Legette, he just played at South Carolina the whole time. It doesn't really make sense. He didn't break out to 5th year. With first 4 years with Malik Washington, he played at Northwestern. And now Northwestern was trash. And when I
Not
say
a
trash,
football powerhouse.
I think I'm being nice there. Like trash is a nice word for them. The leading passer in 2022 had 1,644 passing yards and 6 touchdowns. That was the leading passer. Like 1,600 passing yards and 6 touchdowns. The leading passer in 2021 had 978 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. They won 4 games over those 2 seasons. And you could keep going throughout his whole 4 years. There was nobody that did anything. Like nobody threw the ball with any yards. Nobody had any touchdowns. Everyone sucked on that team. Then he transfers to Virginia for his 5th year and he breaks out and goes crazy and leads the FBS in receptions, receiving yards per game. So you can see why here that he struggled, right? And then all of a sudden, once he got a chance with a better program, he broke out. And it's not like with him, it's not just some big dude that's breaking out against 18-year-olds. Like I feel better about Malik Washington in the 4th round than I would about Xavier Legette in the 3rd. But Legette, I do get is like the big, strong, fast dude. That's fun as well.
35 forced missed tackles last year. For a guy that's 5'8", like that's pretty impressive. Now he's not trucking people necessarily, but a missed tackle is a missed tackle. So, you know, look, when you get down into rounds 2, rounds 3, rounds 4, everybody's going to have a wart, right? They're not all going to be beauty queens at that point, but you've got to decide what you can live with, what's a deal breaker, and what's not. And that's going to depend on different teams, different coaches, different evaluations. But there's something to love about everybody that you've brought up so far.
Now, should we talk about the relatives? Because I know everyone wants them.
Oh, sure.
They want the Brendan Rice. They want the Luke McCaffrey. I will say I don't get the Brendan Rice want. I get he's Jerry Rice's son, but let's chat about him because I've gone through the guys that I want the 49ers to get. Those are my 2nd, 3rd round guys that I want them to get. But Brendan Rice, I know people are going to be looking at him in the 3rd, 4th round. 49ers fans are going to want it to happen. He's big-bodied, 6'2", 208 pounds, just turned 22 years old. Everything seems like it should be great, right? Jerry Rice's son. He's had everything he's ever needed in his life to be the best wide receiver he could be. And then he gets to play with Caleb Williams, the best quarterback in FBS and one of the best quarterbacks coming out in college, like as a prospect in a long time here. And he still didn't do anything. He had 791 yards. He did put up 12 touchdowns. Cool. So maybe he can score some touchdowns. But my concern is why was he not the number 1 receiver at USC, right? Taj Washington was the number 1 receiver with 1,062 yards at USC last year, while Rice was at 791. This Washington dude is number 27th ranked guy in Brugler's wide receiver rankings. He's going to be like a 6th or 7th round pick. Like you're telling me Brendan Rice, Jerry Rice's son, who is supposed to, like, if he's going to be able to be great, how is he not great already? You've had everything you already needed. You're playing with this great quarterback. Why are you not dominating with that team, or at least leading the team in receiving yards? You're telling me all of a sudden he's going to get better in the NFL and start to be a good wide receiver. Like, I don't see it. It just comes down to he is Jerry Rice's son. I have zero desire for the 49ers to take him.
So we were talking about the Beast, the draft guide earlier. Here's like how detailed this thing is. On Brendan Rice, it says, you know, his father's Jerry Rice, blah, blah, blah. While growing up with his mother, Brendan never lived with his father, who was married to his former wife, Jacqueline, when Brendan was born. Like, that is the level of detail that this friggin' draft guide has. It's absolutely incredible. I have seen a lot of people say it's great that he's Jerry Rice's son, but he ain't it. Like, he doesn't separate particularly well. Again, I'm not a scout. I don't pretend to be. But the idea of, oh, we have to draft this guy because he's Jerry Rice's kid, like, that's not how it works. In fact, most of the time, it's very rare to have like a father and a son who are good enough to be NFL players and both good players. That almost never happens. Like the whole Archie Manning, Eli Manning, Peyton Manning thing, that's like ridiculously, ridiculously rare.
Yeah, I feel like brothers are a lot more common, right? Like they grew up in the same, like competitive. They were playing all, that whole time together. Like you can see that more, but the father son thing doesn't seem to work out as much. And again, like I just don't get how he's going to go from a pretty mediocre wide receiver in college to then like what is going to change from him in the NFL, that he's going to go from a mediocre guy that has had everything that he's needed. He's played with great quarterback. Like what's going to change for him? It's only going to get harder. I don't get it with him.
Yeah, if his name was Brendan Johnson, would anybody be interested? And if
Nobody
the answer
would
is
want him.
no, then what are we doing here? Let's not waste our time. What
Nobody
about
would
Luke
want him.
McCaffrey?
So I'm more open to him, especially he's going a couple rounds later, or predicted to go a couple rounds later than Rice. So there's that. You're saving some draft capital there. He's all the way down at wide receiver 25 for Dane Brugler. So he has him pretty low. McCaffrey is 6'1", 198 pounds, 23 years old. He is he ran a 4.46, plenty fast enough, had a 10-1 broad jump, 36-inch vertical jump, like nothing crazy. I feel like he's just kind of in the middle of the pack here in athleticism, which is fine. That's fine. Now, I will say he played quarterback for like the first 3 years of his college career. So he is just newly coming in to a wide receiver at Rice. So that's promising, right? And he had 13 touchdowns last year, 992 receiving yards, already a way better season than Brendan Rice ever had right off the bat.
There's a punch to the face.
Yeah. And he caught a touchdown in 11 of 13 games last year. So like the McCaffreys know how to score touchdowns, clearly.
Yes,
right?
they do.
That seems like a Christian McCaffrey stat. He was one of just 6 FBS receivers last year with 70 catches and 13 touchdowns in the 2023 season. Like if you want to take a chance on Luke McCaffrey because you know how hard the McCaffreys work, you know how great Christian McCaffrey is, you know that they could work together, and you're getting him in the 5th round, I would much rather take a shot on him, throw him in the slot. He can be a depth piece at wide receiver. Like I'd rather go that route than taking Brendan Rice.
Kenny watching on YouTube said that Luke McCaffrey had a couple very fun catches too. When I talked with Thor Nystrom again, before he bashed Malachi Corley into the sun, he praised Luke McCaffrey for such a long time about how he's new to the position, how he's such a natural athlete, how he makes a lot of really impressive contested catches. He really liked Luke McCaffrey. And like you, he said, like, you're going to be able to get this guy later in the draft. So your investment is going to be so little that like it's really worth taking a flyer on. I love the idea of drafting Luke McCaffrey like late 4th, early 5th. I think they have the last pick in the 4th round because it's because of the whole accounting error or whatever. One of their picks got bumped down. So they have literally the last pick in the 4th round. It's a comp pick. If you can snag them there, like I say, what the hell? Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll be rooting for Luke McCaffrey just for the story. And I do think he can be good. And like I said, like these brothers seem to normally, if you're good and another brother is in the league, they're normally pretty good, right? Maybe not at the elite level of them, but normally that seems to be way more sticky than the father-son type of connection.
And this family is so ridiculously athletic. Ed obviously played in the NFL for a long time, won multiple Super Bowls with the Broncos and the 49ers. His Ed's wife, Christian's mom, was a college athlete herself. So you've got like 2 incredibly athletic people. Christian McCaffrey, we know, is really good. Max McCaffrey, one of the brothers, played in the NFL for a little while. Luke is in this draft class. I think there's another McCaffrey. I think there's one more that's also really good. Like the genes in this family are ridiculous.
Wait, so did Shanahan also babysit Luke?
I don't know. So Shanahan didn't actually babysit Christian. His sister babysat Christian.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
But
like,
still, they have that close connection with the families. I feel like if he's sitting there late in the 4th round, they're just going to pick him. They're going to feel comfortable with the player. They know he's going to work hard. They know he's going to do everything to succeed. It doesn't mean he will succeed because you have to have both the skill to do it and the will. But at least he has the will. And a lot of players fail because they don't have that drive or that will to go all in. At least they know, like in this family, they do. So that's at least something checked off for them. So if he's sitting there in the late 4th, I'm sure they do pick him.
Andre Garibay, YouTube channel member, says some team might take him earlier just because of his last name and his brother. It's entirely possible. Shout out to Andre and all our YouTube channel members, by the way. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Please do. It's less than $3 a month. You get custom emojis, you get membership badges, you get priority comment response. I do appreciate it if you want to sign up and be one of our YouTube channel members. Yeah, there is another McCaffrey. Luke's third brother, Dylan, played quarterback at Michigan for 4 seasons before transferring to Northern Colorado, where he played for his father. The McCaffrey fingerprints are all over this draft. Do you know the offensive lineman Roger Rosengarten was coached by Ed McCaffrey?
Wow.
So, like, the friggin' McCaffrey tentacles are all over this thing. I would not be stunned to have Roger Rosengarten taken in round 1. And I could already see all the questions post-draft about, well, we talked to Ed because of Christian and we knew he was really good. Like, I could already see that happening.
That'd be such a reach. I would hate that.
Mel Kiper has him mocked to the 49ers in round 1.
I know. We talked about this in our lineman show. It's gross. He's like, yeah, it'd be a reach, but that would just be reaching for a position to reach for a position. That's not taking the best player available. That's taking a need, and that normally does not work out.
Paul Hope of 49ers UK. Shout out to you, Paul. Appreciate you. Says, I'm all in for Luke McCaffrey. Dude, with a 4th round comp pick, hell yeah. Give me that. At least it's interesting. How many picks are nothing and it's never interesting? You never even think about him again. I'll take interesting. Absolutely.
Yep. 4th rounder. I love it. Take Troy Franklin in the 2nd, Luke McCaffrey in the 4th, and you're good.
Anyone else? You probably don't have much on this guy because he's not expected to be drafted, but Terrell Owens' son, Tariq, is in this draft class as well. He just worked out at the 49ers local pro day. I haven't heard anybody say he's even going to get drafted, let alone, and be like a monster player. But the legacy players, Jerry Rice, son, Terrell Owens, son, Christian McCaffrey, brother. There's another Ron Stone, I think, former 49ers offensive lineman. His son is in this draft class. They asked Terrell Owens about it this week. He said, yeah, I guess we all got busy at the same time.
Yeah, for real. And then, I know Kurt Warner didn't play for the 49ers, but his son came out last year. But it's so funny because I do think, was his son drafted? I do think he got drafted one of the last picks, or
Kurt Warner's son?
Yeah, Cade Warner, or did he go undrafted? But either way, he signed with a team for like a hot second. He did not make it. So another failed, son.
Yeah, it's not a common thing. It's really not. This just in, making the NFL was really hard. And even if you have the advantage of one of your parents being athletically gifted enough to make it, that is no guarantee that you are going to be.
Unfortunately, this is going to sound silly, but I do think maybe these kids who grow up in the families that it's very secure, right? They don't have to work as hard to get their stuff. I feel like making it in the NFL, you have to have such grit and just go all, you have to just be all in to make yourself better at all points. And maybe the easier your life is, the less likely you are to do that. Now, I'm sure there's plenty of rich kids who try really, really hard and are great. But, I feel like if you're comparing the two, probably the poor kid that had to fight for it all is probably going to have a better work ethic when it comes to making it into the NFL.
How many times have we heard stories? I grew up hearing about Jerry Rice and his dad throwing in bricks, and every time Jerry would drop a brick, his dad would freak out on him because his dad was a bricklayer. So Jerry developed his great hands because he was catching the bricks from his father. There are so many little nitty-gritty stories about that. You don't hear a lot of stories yes, he developed his great hands at the elite wide receiver camp that his dad paid for him to get in when he was 15 years old or whatever it is.
Yeah. So some of these kids just had a little bit easier, they're not as worried about where money is going to come from. And probably that's just going to that's something in the brain, right? It's something in the brain where you're not as desired to try as hard. No, that's not everybody. There's outliers. I don't want anyone to, come at me. There's outliers, of course, but.
Steve-O watching on YouTube. Is that the Darnold jersey? Yes, it is. As I just stood up so you can see it. It is the Sam Darnold jersey. How many times do I have to wear this? We never stated that in the bet, Michelle.
Every single Friday for the next year.
I didn't agree to that. I did not agree to that.
It's going to be your good luck jerseys on Fridays before game.
There is nothing lucky about that. The second this show is over, I'm ripping it off my body and throwing it in a corner somewhere.
Actually, I don't know if I want you to wear on Fridays during the season. That might be really bad luck.
Right. That's bad juju, man. I don't know if I want to tempt fate like that. So, okay, you have given us, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 actual wide receivers that you potentially want the 49ers to take. Plus, we hit on Brendan Rice. Plus, we hit on Luke McCaffrey. Is there anyone else you want to mention?
Nope. I want to know your draft crush.
Okay. So I want to state for the record, and I've said this many times, I don't watch a ton of college football. I'm not a draft expert. I'm not a scout. I'm not anything. This is a draft crush. It's not logical. When you have a crush on someone, it's not based on logic. It's based on emotion, right? Love at first sight. That's not logical. What's that based on? Sight. So I came across some highlights from this person this morning on X, and I was like, oh my God, I really like the way this guy runs. He reminds me of George Kittle after the catch with the ball in his hands. And that person is, and I hope I'm saying his name right, Jaheim Bell. He's a tight end. He went to Florida State last year. He was at South Carolina for 3 years before that. He doesn't have a ton of college production. Not really. He's only got 9 career touchdowns, just to put that in perspective. He's 6'3". He's 230. And I just see him with the ball in his hands. And I'm like, this guy reminds me of George Kittle, Deebo Samuel. He has that kind of like yak gene that I feel like fits in so well with the 49ers.
Yeah, I've seen and heard a lot of great things about him on Twitter. And there was one awesome stat. I'll have to find it and I'll tag you and you can share it with your followers about one of his insane stats. It's just like so far beyond everybody else in terms of like all the good tight ends that have come out and produced in the NFL. So, yeah, I mean, he's definitely a guy I'll keep an eye on. I need to do more research on him and watch some tape, but I think he could be a fun player to draft.
So if you're watching this
video, but it's little.
Yeah, so if you're watching the stream online, I have a clip of him that was posted on X. He catches the ball and he's got 3 guys converging on him. And right after he catches the ball, he like sees a defender coming, a safety, and he spins out of the tackle. Like, but in order to do that, you have to kind of see it ahead of time. It's not like something you can just do. And it just blew me away. And there's a couple other highlights that were tweeted out. And I'm like, man, I don't know where this guy's projected to go or be or any of that, but he's my new draft crush.
Listen, if they don't go with Jatavian Sanders from Texas.
Right. That's the guy you suggested.
Yeah. I don't know if he'll be there in the end of the second, but he has been falling out of first rounds for mock drafts. So maybe he'll be there at the end of the second. I would love that. Some George Kittle, Sanders, Ayuk, Deebo, Christian McCaffrey. You can't stop that.
So I'm just reading in the Beast, the draft guide now. Here's the summary, the last couple sentences. Bell is not a dynamic weapon, but he has pass-catching talent, and NFL teams will like his contact balance and competitive chops as a blocker, receiver, and after the catch. A similar player to the Houston Texans' Brevin Jordan, he can earn a number 2 tight end role. He's projected 5th, 6th round. Get it done.
That's where George Kittle went, right? Then Kittle goes 5th round.
5th round.
Listen.
Again, it's not logical. I'm not even telling you he's going to be a good player, but crushes happen for all sorts of reasons. I saw his highlights today, and I was like, damn, I like the cut of that man's jib.
5th round. I love it. I love it.
All right. Last thing I want to mention before we go, the 49ers signed Rock Yassin yesterday. So obviously that's just a nice veteran pickup, but I think it has 2 repercussions for this team. One, if your name is Ambry Thomas or Darrell Luter or Samuel Womack, buckle up because you are in a fight for your 49ers career this offseason and this preseason. I think it's a huge flashing sign to those guys. One of you is probably not going to be here.
It's probably like I can't see Womack being there next year. Do you really think Ambry Thomas is could lose his job?
Oh, 100%.
Like he could lose his starting job, but you think he would get like cut?
I think he could potentially because everything I'm hearing is that they love Darrell Luter, who was hurt for most of the year. And unfortunately, everybody knows his name now because the ball went off of him in the Super Bowl on that punt return. But supposedly they love him. We know Ambry Thomas has had his struggles. I don't know, like Samuel Womack, where's he been? Like, so I think that clearly.
Remember how good he looked in the preseason?
I know. So I think that one of those guys is not going to be on the team.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Rock Gusson I think that's a good depth piece signing. He has experience. You're not throwing in. Like, so much about the 49ers is that these guys are throwing in this. They're so young. They don't have experience, and maybe they can grow or whatever. But I do think you need more veteran depth. So I think this is a nice veteran depth signing.
Oh, I want to get to this. Going back to my draft crush, Jaheim Bell. Emiliano says, sounds good, but try not to watch highlights, watch tape, or else the love might be manipulated by sweet nothings into the eyes. No, that's not what I do. So I've talked about this in the past. I usually only do this once the guys are drafted because I want to see, like, I don't want to waste my time watching everybody. But I like to look, if it's like a skill player, I like to look at their highlights. Like, give me their best plays.
What are they gonna love him always? This is what happened to me with Cameron Latu last year, because I knew I didn't like him when they drafted him. I was like, this is just a waste. And then after they drafted him, I was like, okay, well, let me go watch his highlights. Maybe that will get me excited. His highlights got me excited for no reason, because they were probably like once every blue moon, but they're all put together back to back to back. So I was like, you know what? Maybe he can be good. And he was pointless. He was a pointless pick.
I like to watch the highlights, and I like to see, like, what are they doing in their best plays? Is it speed? Is it tackle breaking? Is it great catches? Whatever it is. And whatever that thing is, does that historically carry over into the NFL? If the answer is yes, then I think, all right, maybe we got something here. But if like you're a quarterback and all your best plays are runs, don't talk to me. I don't want to know.
Or also, if you're a quarterback and all your best plays are just deep throws, like wide open deep throws.
Right. Whatever.
General.
Yes.
It's like you need to see more than that. You need to see really accurate plays, intermediate, making crazy off balance plays, and like out of structure when everything doesn't go perfect. Like, that's what I want to see. So much of the highlights would like especially like Mason Rudolph coming out. If you watch his highlight tape, you'd be like, oh my God, this guy's so good. Cause it was just like a deep chuck to James Washington here, deep chuck to James Washington there. It was nonstop. But if that's all they can do, it's not going to win in the NFL.
Right. So if those are your best plays and I'm seeing stuff like that, then I'm like, all right, I don't know about this person. So I like to look at the highlights and see what's good. And if you're good after the catch and you kind of have that kind of vision that I like to see, I get a little excited. Again, we're talking about a guy that could go 5th, 6th round. Like, give me my day 3 things to hope for here. Going back to Rock Ya-Sin, the other repercussion of the signing, I think, is that, and I've been saying this, but I think if you look at the 49ers offseason, in their eyes, I think they've checked every box. We've got enough on the offensive line to get to the Super Bowl, and that's not opinion, it's fact, because we just did it. Check that off the list. Restock the defensive line, check that off the list. They signed 2 corners, check that off the list. No quarterback controversy. Great, check that off the list. I really think the 49ers are going best player available the whole draft, because in their eyes, they've addressed everything. They have plugged the holes enough to get by. So I think that could make for a really interesting draft, or it could make for a really boring draft, depending on who they see as the best players available.
No, definitely that's the way they should go. And I agree with you. Like, they plug the holes enough. And even like I say, like Colt McKivitz, that's still a wide open hole. Maybe guard, right? They didn't sign any guard depth. They didn't sign center depth. So like maybe interior offensive lineman is the one place they really haven't filled their needs and figured that out, because they cannot go in with no competition for those guys, right? So they have to draft interior offensive lineman.
They re-signed John Feliciano, who took over. He took Spencer Burford's job and played better than Spencer Burford. So I think they think we're okay. Now, I don't agree with it. I agree with you. Like I would love another center, another right guard, 2 offensive line spots in this draft. That's what I want. I don't care if it's guard and center.
And they need another safety terribly bad.
Yes, they do. And everybody thinks that they might sign one in free agency, that they've been sniffing around a few different guys.
Is Justin Simmons still a free agent?
I think he is.
That's wild. What is he doing? There's been no news surrounding him either, like going to visit teams or anything.
Yeah, that's true. I haven't really seen it. That's why we don't know if he's still out there, because we're like, there haven't been any news. That's a quiet free agency if that's the case. Nick Ellert says rumors are Niners are looking to trade up into the teens, have the instant reaction show ready. I saw that report, but I think that was more of a due diligence thing by the 49ers. I think it was more of a, hey, give me a ballpark so if something crazy happens and we do want to trade off, we sort of know what we're looking at. Because remember, a lot of this stuff happens when teams are on the clock. You don't have a ton of time to hash out a deal. If you don't have a ballpark going in, you're going to use up a chunk of your negotiating time just trying to figure out where the hell you are. Whereas if you have a ballpark going in, you can call somebody with very little time on the clock and say, hey, I'm going to offer XYZ. Can we do something here? Because don't forget, after you agree to a trade, both sides have to then report it into the league, and the terms obviously have to match. And there's a lot of confusion that could happen. So I don't know that it's like, oh, the Niners are definitely moving into the teens. I think it was more of a, they're doing their due diligence type of thing.
And they'd be moving up for a tackle, I'm guessing, right? Like what other position would they be moving up for? I think only tackle.
I would assume so. Kyle generally doesn't value interior offensive linemen that much, so I would be surprised if he spent a lot of capital to move up for a guard. Nick Ellert also says, Tim Kawakami says he thinks the Niners' hope is to get a top tackle and move Colton McKivitz to guard. Okay. I mean, I don't think that Colton McKivitz is suddenly going to be an awesome guard, so I don't know.
Colt McKivitz should be moved to his couch. That's where he should be moved.
Poor Colton. Like, I would love him as a backup offensive lineman. I'd be like, great. I feel really good about that. But as the unquestioned starter, like he was going into last year, like, no.
Yeah, no. But yeah, I could think if they move up into the teens, it has to be for one of those top 5 tackles. Like, they're probably worried they're going to miss out on those top guys, which they probably, if they sit at 31, they probably will. Like, I don't think any of them will get there to them. And then at that point, they either have to decide to reach on a tackle or, do we move up and make sure we get one of these guys?
Yeah, that's an interesting question too. It's like, do we move up to get one of the top tackles or do we sit where we are and get a top player at another position?
Although if you move from 31 to like in the teens, you're probably giving up your second round pick, which stinks.
It ain't going to be cheap.
No.
Like, it is not going to be cheap. So you have to, number one, you have to love somebody in order to get
I think in their situation, they're better off to seeing like, okay, if a tackle starts dropping a bit, if they make it to the 20s, 21, 22, like, and they start dropping, then you consider moving up. Because if you move up from 31 to 24, let's say, like, that's going to cost you way less than trying to move up to 17 or in those teens. Like, you can maybe give up a fourth, right, to move up the 6 spots or whatever it would cost. It would be so different than having to move up 15 spots or like that. So I think they need to just play it out, see how the board goes. If someone starts to drop that they want and they get into those high 20s, that's where you start to call the teams up.
Yeah, I think if they move up, it might be to go from like 31 to 25, something like that. I think that's definitely possible. And maybe you get,
because the issue is the Ravens are sitting right in front of them who desperately need a tackle as well. So you really can't sit at 31 if your guys there that you really want and the tackles have been dwindling down and been taken. Like, if there's a guy you want at a tackle, the Ravens are probably going to take them. So you're going to have to jump them, but you just jump a couple spots.
Oh, man, this is such an important draft class. It's so damn important. You've got to get a couple of guys that are going to be a part of your core team going forward. Because otherwise, you go into 2025 and it could look really, really scary. The cupboard could be a lot more bare, especially depending on what happens with Brandon Ayuk. I don't know what position. It could be corner. It could be safety. It could be offensive line. But they got to start.
Last year's draft was just trash. I mean, so bad.
Yes.
Now, they didn't have a first or second rounder for sure, but they had a lot of picks and really, really bad.
I mean, I think you could say without being a jerk or being sarcastic, like the guy that got the most out of from that draft class is Jake Moody.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty clear, and that's not a slight on Jake Moody, but it's either him or Jair Brown, and Jair Brown didn't play for most of the year because he didn't come in until Hufanga got hurt.
Yeah. They were like all pointless besides those two.
Cameron Latu, nothing. Darrell Luter, nothing. Robert Beal, nothing. D. Winters, Braden Willis, Ronnie Bell. Ronnie Bell came in and fumbled a bunch of kicks and punts. Like, no, man.
And it's like, you're not like, all of these guys can't be starters and great players, but you expect them to be like rotational guys, get something done. That's too many names to say absolutely nothing. Like they had zero impact on this team. Was all of them but Brown and a kicker. That's it.
Yeah. Well, if you told me when Jake Moody was drafted that that's going to be the most impactful piece, that would, I would not qualify that as a great draft.
And he had a rocky season, really nice postseason, but
Jair Brown?
No. Jake Moody.
No, I mean Jake Moody did
Rocky
miss a kick
start.
in every playoff game. Like,
Did he?
so yeah, he missed a kick in every single playoff game. Now he made some big ones. He
Yeah.
also made some big ones too. But yeah, look, it can be done. It needs to be done. If the 49ers are going to keep this rolling, I keep telling people this, but it's true. If you look at why every team became good and why every team became bad, the answer is the same. It's the draft. Go look at the 49ers and how the miserable draft classes they had under Trent Baalke. Some of them are horrible, and you see the team fall off after their core veterans left because there was nothing left. If you want to go see a team get good, go look at the Seahawks draft in like 2011, 2012. It's awesome. It is great. And all of a sudden, hey, look, here come the Seahawks. Like, that's why I love the draft so much. Now, we don't know who's good and who's bad until years later, but I love it. And I love going back and watching the old drafts too, because we know all the information now. So it's hilarious to watch the old draft and like hear what people say and stuff. And then knowing now, like, oh, this guy was totally wrong, or damn, we slept on this guy. I love all of it.
Yeah. I mean, even the Rams, they were supposed to be so bad last year, right? And then they hit on some of their picks. They also didn't have early picks, but they hit on two good outside linebackers. They hit on Puka Nacua. They had other players in there that were role players. Like, a draft can really change a season. Now, the 49ers don't need this draft to change this season in 2024, but we brought up last episode when we were debating back and forth about these veterans likely not all going to be here very soon from now, right? Like, how many more years do they all have together? So that's when it becomes important. You need to start like, okay, last year's draft class sucked. You'll live with that, right? Because these veterans are still here this year, but you can't have like 2-3 years in a row of bad draft classes. It's going to come back and really kill you here in the next few years.
If Jair Brown can be a solid starter for you, which hopefully he can, and you get, I mean, we talked about Moody already. Okay, whatever. Just one of like Darrell Luter or Robert Beal, just a couple of league average players out of your draft class. That's going to go so far in helping the depth of your team. Because the other thing too, and I keep reiterating this point, what you miss on in the draft, you pay for in free agency. That's how it goes, because you have to fill the holes somehow. So getting it done in the draft is great because you get a good player who can outperform his contract and they're cheap as hell. That's the preferred way. But when you look at like, oh, why did we sign Quan Alexander to a massive contract? Because Reuben Foster didn't pan out. That's why. Like, you can draw a direct line from draft misses to free agent acquisitions. So wherever they miss on, they're going to pay for in free agency. Drake Jackson, not it. Who'd they sign? Leonard Floyd. Like, it's all connected.
Yeah. Drakey. Thought Drake was going to be good.
Not. Definitely not, unfortunately.
Not.
So we will see as it turns out. Obviously, we will be here through all of it with you. We're not going anywhere, as we always have been. Please like and subscribe to the Gold Standard YouTube channel. Please leave a rating and a review on the Gold Standard Apple Pod page. That is the best way for people to discover us, especially as a podcast. That can be very difficult. So please leave a 5-star rating and a review. I always say, if you insult me, I will read it on the show. The better the insult, the more likely it is to be read. So fire when ready, people. What do you
Don't
got going
insult
on?
Me, please.
Yes, leave Michelle
I don't
alone.
like that.
What do you have going on this weekend, Michelle?
Got kickball tonight and then just chilling the rest of the weekend. What about you?
Guess.
Nothing.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
I will say I'm wearing a sweatshirt and it's like 800 degrees. So I don't know why I wore a sweatshirt, but I wanted to wear my 49er sweatshirt, but that was a mistake. It's very hot here in Texas.
Sean Turner says, burn the jersey now. I just might, Sean. That's a distinct possibility. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye, y'all.